Hey, good morning, it's Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. A question I get quite frequently from clients, as well as people just through an open house that come through one of my opens. And I also see on talk radio and on the news and BNN and that kind of thing. A lot of people will ask about, should I be paying down my mortgage early and burning down my mortgage while the getting's good? And the reason I know that it's a pretty hot topic is I see another book that's on the top 10 in Amazon along with mine. There's a book about, a new book that just came out about paying down your mortgage early. Now, I'll give you my opinion on it right now. Now, for some people, paying down a mortgage early might make sense. But for the vast majority of people, not in the current interest rate environment we've got, which is a 5-year rate at 2.3 or 2.4%, I don't think it makes any sense, and I'm going to explain why. Now, first off, for the person that it might make sense for is maybe a guy that, he's getting a little older. He's maxed out his RRSPs, his TFSAs. He's got a good-sized stock portfolio already. And hey, it sure beats, putting the money into a term deposit or a GIC, earning you 1.5% or 1.25% and getting taxed on it at your full marginal tax rate. But for the vast majority of people that ask me this question and that I see answered on some of these call-in shows on BNN, they're generally younger. They're in their 30s or 40s or early 50s even. And in my opinion, it doesn't make much sense to be paying down a mortgage right now. You'd be far better off investing that money and getting a much higher return. Now, eventually, interest rates will go up, but they would need to get up to, in my opinion, 4.5%, 5.5%, 6% or higher. Then, for sure, it would start to make sense to pay down that mortgage early. So, one other thing to get out of the way. It never makes sense, first off, to ever pay down a mortgage early on an investment property. That's the first thing you should be made aware of, because the interest on an investment property is fully deductible. So you want to let that ride. We're talking here about paying down the interest on your principal residence. So here's why I wouldn't advise it. You're paying 2.4% right now on the mortgage. In my opinion, and this is why I wrote my book, Along for the Ride, I've got several chapters in here on how to allocate your money, paying down your mortgage versus investing it into some good Canadian equities or maxing out your TFSA or your RRSP. And so many people, they just don't want to take the time, and it doesn't take a lot of time. It's going to take a bit. You're going to have to read a book like mine and a few others and do a bit of work on it, but it will pay off in spades for you down the road if you just learn the basic fundamentals of Canadian taxation, for sure, and how to allocate your money and how to put it into dividend-paying stocks, for example. So you've got a 5-year rate right now at 2.4%. Rather than pay that down early, why not take $1,000 every week or every month and buy shares in, let's say, Bell Canada, BCE. Now, Bell Canada right now, as I speak, is paying close to a 5% dividend yield. 5%. So to keep it simple here, if you had $100,000 in Bell Canada stock, every year you're going to get $5,000 in dividends paid in a quarterly payment every 3 months. $5,000 a year. Now, I should say that being a Canadian company like BCE, you can take advantage of the Canadian dividend tax credit. And that $5,000 is going to be taxed at an extremely low rate. It depends on your current tax bracket, but for argument's sake, I'm going to say it's going to probably be somewhere between 10 and 12, 13%. So about a third of what you're paying on earned income or interest income or rental income. It's one of the best things that we get as a Canadian taxpayer. A lot of people don't realize the Canadian dividend tax credit. You're taxed on it at a very low rate. So why pay down a mortgage at 2.3 or 2.4 when you can earn 5% from Bell Canada dividend every year? And be taxed on it at a very low rate. Plus, one step further, your Bell Canada shares are also going to produce capital gains for you. Not every year, because Bell Canada stock is going to go up and down just like the stock market does. But over the last 20 years, Bell Canada has probably delivered about 6 to 8% annualized return. And that's going to be in the form of capital gains, which are taxed at another very favorable rate, 50% of the gain. So until interest rates on your mortgage go back up to 5.5%, You'd be a lot better off to learn the basics on how to allocate your money and how taxes work in Canada. And it's one of the reasons why I wrote my book. I found so many people were just completely didn't know anything about this, didn't even know about the Canadian dividend tax credit or how various vehicles are taxed. So you'd be a lot better off to do that. You could probably, including the dividend, look at an annualized rate of return on Bell Canada of 10 or 11% over the next 10 or 15 years. So again, it doesn't make much sense paying down a mortgage at 2.3 or 2.4 when you can probably easily double or triple that in a much more tax favorable manner with a company like TELUS or Bell Canada or Royal Bank or TD. So learn the basics, folks, of this. And again, it might make sense to pay down your mortgage if interest rates spike here 5 or 6%, or for a guy who's maybe older and has maxed out all those other vehicles. But for anyone under the age of 50 and the low interest rate environment we're in right now, it doesn't make much sense to be paying off a mortgage early. You'd be far better off investing that money, learn the basics of what to invest in, not just anything, and learn how these various vehicles are taxed. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.